What's going on, guys? Dare here with Fantasy Football Advice, coming at you with another fantasy football video. Today, we will be going over the top 5 best picks in the draft, and in order to determine this list, what I did was I took our current rankings, bounced them against the current ADP, saw who was coming in at the best value while also being a flex level starter or better. I did want to get at least one player at each position, so we do have those included, but it's a top 5 list, so there is one extra player in there. Before we do get into the video, stat of the day. Yesterday's stat of the day was which running back with at least 125 carries had the highest percentage of carries go 10 yards or more. The answer to that was Aaron Jones and James Sasinsky. You got this one right. As for today, which running back had the highest touch percentage while on the field? So while they were in on the snap, they were being used more often than any other running back in the league. So again, which running back had the highest touch percentage while on the field? Leave your answer in the comment section down below. We'll be happy to let you know who wins in tomorrow's video. So we may as well get him out of the way first. It's Lamar Jackson at the quarterback position, and this should be no surprise. We've been talking about him all offseason, and nothing has changed. Unless they change the point scoring system and how quarterbacks get points for rushing yards, there is no way Lamar Jackson should ever fall outside the top 10 quarterbacks. Last season, he ran the ball on 25% of all plays, and the next closest quarterback was Josh Allen at 12.4%. So yes, he doubled the next quarterback who rushed the most. So you're talking a serious floor, and the worst fantasy performance he had as a starter was 15.9 fantasy points. And he didn't even throw a touchdown in 4 of those games. So yes, he is a steal where he's going in drafts. Currently, he is being drafted as the 7th pick in the 10th round behind quarterbacks like Jared Goff, Jameis Winston. His fantasy stock is rising though, so make sure if you can get him at a discount in drafts right now, you do so. Over the past 30 days, he has risen from a mid-12th round pick to now a mid-10th round pick. Even though Lamar Jackson doesn't see himself running as much as he did last season, we already went over that he rushed 2 times as much as any quarterback did last year, and we're hoping for more passing production anyway. A reduction in attempts is still going to probably break the record for the most rush attempts by a quarterback in league history. Cam Newton currently owns that record, and when asked, John Harbaugh put it on record that if he were to bet that Lamar Jackson would break the rush attempt record this upcoming season or not, that he would bet for it. So far this preseason, he's looked really good. His completion percentage is over 60%. He came in through a touchdown to Willie Snead, and word is he put on 17 pounds of muscle. So there's a lot to love, not a lot to dislike. And right now you can get him as the 14th quarterback off the board. The only way this pick may not pay off is if you're in a 6-point per passing touchdown league and he just doesn't get the touchdowns that he needs in the passing game to compete with some of the other guys. But that, and barring injury, it's a slam dunk pick. So up next we have Daryl Henderson of the Los Angeles Rams, and originally we thought he was going to be a late 4th round pick. But as we've gotten closer to fantasy drafts, people have been taking Todd Gurley a lot higher, and in turn Daryl Henderson has slipped several rounds. In fact, he can now be taken in the late 7th, early 8th. That could be in large part due his poor performance in the preseason. He's only averaged 2.4 yards per carry. You can't put too much value on that because it is only 12 attempts. Such a small sample, but what you really should be paying attention to is the fact that he has had 7 targets. I think it's safe to say he's a solid pass catcher. He's caught every target that came his way. So what does that mean? They can rest Todd Gurley even on clear passing situations, and while Todd Gurley is healthy and on the field, Daryl Henderson will likely be used as a change of pace back. He could have flex value even while Todd Gurley is healthy, and if anything happens to Gurley, if they shut him down early in the fantasy playoffs, if he goes down with a separate injury, if his knees just start flaring up and he has to take a few weeks off, Daryl Henderson is going to be first in line and get all of that valuable pass catching work. That's a lot of potential targets. You're telling me I could get a backup who will see more field time than most backups. Not only that, the running back he's running behind has an increased chance of missing games and being held out during the fantasy playoffs due to resting for the actual NFL playoffs. It's a pick that has a lot of potential. We're going to move to a wide receiver, and it should come as no surprise, Curtis Samuel. I do want you to keep in mind that his ADP is climbing. He went from an 11th round pick all the way up to an 8th round pick. So if his ADP rises anymore, he may not be the value that we wanted and expected when initially taking him. As for his production, the news in camp, completely glowing. And I know a lot of people are afraid to take a player who's noted as somewhat of a gadget guy, low volume, high variance, but you would be surprised by exactly how much he was involved in the passing game towards the tail end of last season. He had 7 or more targets in 4 of the last 7 games, including 2 double-digit target games. They like to get him involved in the rushing game as well. 3 of those 7 games, he had at least 1 rush attempt. And wouldn't you think defenses would have their hands full when guarding DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey, and potentially Greg Olsen, who has been their safety blanket for years? He was drafted in 2017, so you know what that means. He's coming into that 3rd year for a wide receiver, that breakout year. And we can't forget that even though he was injured for the past 2 seasons, he's still a 2nd round talent. The dude was a monster in college. He's just been dealing with injuries. I'm just worried that this value may not last very long. And if he climbs to the mid 7th, and if he climbs to the late 7th, early 7th, late 6th, that's just unfortunate, because the best thing about Curtis Samuel was that he was slipping under the radar for so long. So make sure you follow his ADP so you don't draft him ahead of players we like more. And if you want to know what our rankings are, you can go over to the website thefantasyfootballadvice.com, sign up, become a member, gain access to the rankings, all of the in-season content, become part of our private community, and more. So if you want access to that, check the link in the description box below, sign up, become a member today. But let's move on to tight end. We have David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns, and he finds himself in this weird stage of the draft where he's not necessarily a late round tight end that you're taking a flyer on, but he's not in that tier with the Hunter Henrys, the Evan Engrams. Right now, he's being drafted as the 12th pick in the 8th round. Baker Mayfield has looked excellent. This offense, it's looked excellent, and we're not expecting Njoku to be fed tons and tons of targets. What we're expecting is this offense to move smoothly enough to get them in scoring position. At that point, Mayfield will know how to get him the ball, and Njoku is the type of athlete to be able to get it. We're talking about a guy who runs a 4.64 40. He's in the 80th percentile for speed score, 96th percentile for burst score, 82nd percentile for agility score, and a 93rd percentile catch radius. At 6'4", 246, he's going to be a nightmare mismatch when they get anywhere near the red zone. And like I said, he doesn't need the volume. Last season, he had the 17th most targets in the red zone, but was tied for 5th in touchdowns. His yardage, and he already finished as the tight end 9 last season. The yardage was there, 639 yards. The only thing missing, the touchdowns. And one thing you can expect this upcoming season is for more scoring opportunities for this team in general. And while most people are devaluing Njoku due to the potential reduction in volume, have to understand that the tight end position itself does not need as much volume as any of the other positions. So David Njoku, he is in a great spot. The last player we have is Cristian Kirk of the Arizona Cardinals, and currently he can be drafted as the 1st pick in the 7th round, and he's been falling. I would attribute it to the poor production that we've seen from this team in the preseason, but I would personally use that to get a value on him if possible. There are a lot of wide receiver options people have at that stage of the draft, and you're talking about a guy who is potentially going to be on an offense running the highest amount of plays in the entire NFL. You're always looking at preseason to tell you which players are going to be relied on, are going to be used. So it was a welcoming sign to see him getting involved right away. In just 12 games last season, he caught 43 passes for 590 yards. If that was stretched to a full season, that would have still been good for just under 60 receptions for 787 yards. And that was on a terrible offense that scored the least amount of points in the league. So it's safe to assume that's his floor. It was a terrible offense with a quarterback that just couldn't get it done. This year, there is no way you cannot agree there should be offensive improvement. Even if they're down 20 points, they're just going to need to throw the ball more. Larry Fitzgerald, also a very solid pick. The amount of volume does scare me for him because he is going to be 36, but Larry Fitzgerald, he's going about a round later, and if you want to take him, I can understand that his value is also falling, but getting a piece of this offense in the receiving game is going to be a good idea. It didn't look good in preseason, and if this team doesn't perform to expectations, it's not going to translate to a lack of passing volume. The receivers, they're going to get theirs. So Cristian Kirk, he makes this list, but we do have an honorable mention, and it goes to Sterling Shepard of the New York Giants. Now, I understand that the Giants have a pretty pitiful offense and a bad quarterback situation as well, but there is no possible way Sterling Shepard, being the only truly capable wide receiver on this team that's not suspended, is only going to produce as the 42nd best wide receiver in the draft. No, that's not possible. When Sterling Shepard was the only healthy receiver, he actually performed. He was a startable asset you could put in as a wide receiver too. This season, he's going to be the only show in town. Golden Tate, he's getting older. Evan Engram, he's already had some injury scares, including a hamstring injury. So if he remains healthy and the pieces around him do get injured, he does have a lot of upside. He's the type of player that has a higher floor, and Daniel Jones did not look that bad. In fact, it did give me confidence to say that if Eli Manning does take a step back, he would be competent enough to fill the gap and not completely diminish the value of the weapons on this team. So for that, Sterling Shepard does get an honorable mention. But that's going to do it for the video, guys. We really hoped you did enjoy. If you did, how about you hit that like button? If you want access to the updated rankings, please check out our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. Link, as always, is in the description box below. We thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.